So,
Hello and welcome to this new episode of The Other Side of. I am lucky to have with me somebody who's a legal intern and welcome Aditya to the show.
thank you for having me.
Um, okay, without much ado, uh, I was thinking what would I ask a legal person that he cannot trap me into? So, one of the easiest questions is how do you define legal? Is it only what is put in law on paper for you as a as somebody who joined the profession anew, or do you also think there is a sense of having some ethics and values in the proposition as well?
So, one of the main things I have learned after having completed my law is I believe that law shouldn't be done to become a lawyer, firstly, because I believe that every person should take up the study of law for the simple reason that it helps you learn a lot about yourself. It teaches you a lot about yourself as well as about the way the world works. So a lot of things start making sense. And it gives you a great power of introspection. So, of course, when you ask me what the law is it plain black and white? There is no answer to that. I mean, the reason we have our jobs is because there is a gray area, right?
Okay.
We live in that gray area at the end of the day. But of course, there should be morals and ethics. But that is so the problem with such a proposition of what is ethical, the problem is that, right, I can be true to my profession or I can be true to justice. Truth to my profession requires me to give the best defense possible for my client, irrespective of whether I believe he's guilty, innocent, whatever, right? But my ethical obligation towards justice would be that if my client is guilty, I should not represent him. So that's why, just like doctors have an obligation to treat anyone irrespective of who they are, even lawyers have this obligation. But most of the times in society, lawyers don't live up to it, right? They are scrutinized a lot. For example, I mean, I know of lawyers who have been scrutinized for having taken up cases of alleged rapists, or someone who's in this one, let's say TADA, right? Terrorism or arms act, and they are looked down upon in the fraternity itself. So that is something which needs to change. Like, at the end of the day, the person is being true to their profession, right?
Okay. When you said that there is a lot to learn uh, about yourself, can you give a personal example, things that you benefited from because you've been studying legal?
So the biggest thing I have learned through self-discovery during my legal course is that I have a love for music, which I rediscovered. I always had a love for music, but I rediscovered my passion for the same because of law. Because you get burnt out and you need something. At the end of the day, it's a very taxing course. So you need something to do. So I found music to help me. Music, reading, watching random informational stuff. In fact, I found my interest for environmental law. That's how I found my interest for environmental law, which is what I want to do eventually. I started reading random posts. I started going on YouTube, looking at the latest technology, uh, any innovations on green tech, basically any information I could get my hands on.
But okay, even if you were not in legal, say you were doing CA and you got
Hmm.
bored, you could have discovered all of these. My
No,
question is
because
more based out of
law do it. All right.
how did studying legal specifically lead you to some learning about yourself? While what you said is also interesting, but it is not really answering
I,
the question to the legal part of it.
hmm. So I learned that I have a ability to draft very well. Like I can write. I realize I can write really well because of law. Because my college required me to make submissions and stuff. Initially, it was a little tough. Being from a SSC HSC background and going into a college where most people are from CBSE and IB, CBSE, ICSE, IB. So it was a little tough in the start, but then I became better. So it helped me develop my skills of drafting. It gave me confidence, honestly. I'm not sure I would have been up for a podcast had it not been for law, because I wasn't that comfortable. It's helped me become a conversationalist. I can hold conversations of my own because of law.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Let us dig a little deeper there, perhaps. Can you tell me a little about what all aspects is one supposed to study when you're studying law, or at least the ones that you specifically like, subjects or whatever they are?
Yeah. So there are five basic tenets of law which you need to know. One is your contract act. Your basics of contract needs to be fundamentally good. Second is your torts, law of torts in consumer protection, we call it. Uh, that also is a fundamental. Third is constitution. Constitution also super important, especially in India, because everything is linked to the constitution. Ours is a top-down legal structure where everything links back to the constitution. So the constitution is perhaps the most important out of all of them. Now, the fourth one is dependent on what you want to do, right? So then that's why the fourth one is a bundle. It is civil bundle, which I call the civil bundle, which includes your Companies Act, your evidence, your civil procedural code, right? That is a civil bundle, which you need to be strong on. And then comes number five, which is your criminal bundle, which is your IPC, your Indian Penal Code,
Yeah,
or CRPC, the Criminal Procedural Code, evidence again. So evidence, when you look at it, you need to look at it from two aspects,
yeah,
right? And in criminal, especially nowadays, criminal and civil both, nowadays IT, Information Technology Act, is playing a more prominent role than ever. So you need to be aware of that as well nowadays.
okay,
You need to learn all of these. At least your basics, these are your fundamentals. After that, you can learn whatever subjects. Like there are a plethora of subjects that you need to do, like property law, X, Y, Z,
yeah.
right? But these are your
So,
fundamentals at the end of
you
the day.
particularly, was there any element of these learnings which kind of provoked you to study yourself further, or maybe you had a point of view on something? Legal is provocative. That is one thing I think everyone will agree on.
Yeah.
So, um, is
Uh,
there any point where you learned something and you had to go back and say, "Did I never thought about this in terms of?" Because finally, what is law? Law is a series of learnings that came when we became a human collective and started thinking how is the best we can deal with each other in all fairness and justice.
yeah.
Um, So obviously, all of us, when you are also provoking all of us to take up law and learn all these fundamental things about the law, which will also tell us something about us and the society in general. What is it that you can share as an example from your personal learning that when you did this and you say, "Oh, I never thought of that."
I think the biggest learning I have had is, and I'd like to quote Veerdas on this. So, Veerdas is
Mm.
one of my most favorite comedians,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
just a amazing artist. And in one of his stand-up special, he mentions this where uh, he asks a feminist on how can I, as a man, be a feminist, and the person responds with, as a man, the first thing you need to do is understand how you see yourself as a man, because 90% masculinity is it's
Inside.
right. So this I learned through law. I wasn't as receptive, I would say. Not even receptive. I mean, when you come from SSC HSC background, right? Stuff like feminism is not spoken about, and which is very, very sad, because I went to college and I did not know all of this stuff. I did not know that certain stuff is problematic, certain stuff should not be said, right? And certain like I did not know a lot about myself to
Yeah.
conduct myself in the best way possible,
True.
right? So I had my own biases, my own prejudices, but I wasn't aware of them. When we started learning law, they we had a course on gender also, but we generally had a social sciences course. And in that, one of my favorite professors, Professor Pirzada Rauf, he's from JNU, who then came to teach at Jindal. He helped us gain perspective more than anything. And I think the problem lies in the way we deal with, the way the left alienates all those who do not understand. That is the core problem. It's not that people want to be prejudiced. People
Understood.
don't know how to not be prejudiced. And the left, instead of teaching, have always played the blame game. Oh, you're prejudiced, which is that would drive a person further away from what you want them to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is interesting. Um, After learning law, how do you look at rules? Do you look at how you can find loopholes through them? Do you see them as important? Do you see them as uh, regressive or any example again? Because, as a society, we're still struggling. We are hardly 70, 75 years, 80 years into taking things in our own hands. We've seen one party rule and then another one has come in. We've seen coalition. We're still figuring out who we are. And the rules keep changing. Sometimes you realize while you adjusted to something, like you very rightly said, you relook and sometimes you think you may have been prejudiced. Sometimes you think, no, that was right. Uh, so I'm not even saying for or against right now. I have my own biases, obviously, but I will not put it out right here. My question is more about how do you, as a legal professional, uh, perceive rules. I want you to break it down into three, if you can, for me. When you were not studying law, when you studied law, and now that you're working, how do you see it? Has Are there any changes, or it's been the same always? Um,
Uh, all right. So before I studied law, to me, rules were, I did not think much of rules. To me, it did not make, like, I couldn't care less. I was very ignorant because you don't care about rules, right? You come from a space of
Rebellious streak.
rebellious nature, right? As a teenager,
Yeah,
so you have complete disregard for rules.
true.
So that's where it started off from. That's first one. Now the second one, when I was studying law, that time I became rule centric. I started believing rules are sacrosanct. Matlab, they are the word of God himself. Rules above everything else.
Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. So that is what, like, for me, that is like, I, for me, law is the law, and no one is above it. That's how it had become when I was studying the law. And now that I've started working, the coming to the third part, to me, it doesn't matter, because again, it doesn't matter. The only question that remains is, who is paying me? Am I being paid to find a loophole in the rule, or am I being paid to plug a loophole? Depending on that, my answer and my perspective changes.
Okay.
So for me now, rules are not that sacrosanct. It's all about who my client is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any ethical issue that you seem to have, or you have none at all? Or is it fluid? Sometimes you have certain issues, sometimes you don't.
I mean, personally, if uh, I mean, for the viewers, I come from a law family. My father's was an advocate too. Yeah, he's on a sabbatical now. Uh, but yeah, so he's in fact retired. But he comes from one of those. Uh, how do I say this? That he's very ethical, as one may call it. Yeah, ethical with respect to justice. So he's one of those lawyers who will look down upon the lawyers who represent a rapist, right? And
Okay.
he will condemn him straight. He has said that such people should not be lawyers at all, right? But my morality is not like his. I have a very different perspective. I believe that my ethical obligation is towards my client above everyone else. As a lawyer, as a professional, that's where my ethical obligation lies, right? And if I feel like I'm not going to be able to do justice to the work because of my own biases, then I should refuse the client and tell him so, that this is the reason why, that I will not be able to do justice to your cause because of my own personal issues, right? So that is also another ethical consideration for me. I cannot take every case and be like, oh, I shall manage my prejudices, because nahi ho sakta hai. In some matters you can't. For example, if you are a let's say you are someone who is a strong believer of, this is hypothetical, uh, let's say you're a complete right-wing person, right? A complete right-wing RSS, hardcore RSS person who will not look at minority, and someone asks you to represent them in a minority rights case, even
Yeah.
though you might be the best lawyer on minority rights, you will not be able to do justice because of your own prejudices. I mean, at some point, you will be like you'll slack off a little. Where you could have pushed a little further, you'll pull back, or you'll let it go. So
True.
yeah, I think that's what ethics to me is, anyway.
It's good answers, man. You are provoking me quite a bit. Um, okay. Since you are so passionate about your field at this present moment, do you see others who are not passionate enough about their own chosen subjects as idiots
I mean, the world is 80% idiots. We only focus on the 20% at the end of the day, right? Because the 20% are the ones who are going to make it. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Uh,
I mean,
no, but does it impact your, say, over a period of time? My own learning was I became a writer, and my language was better than those of my friends for the longest time. Till I met people who were better than me, like you went out of your circle to another circle and realized how much work needed to be done. And there you also deal with your own lack of confidence and doubts and fears, and work on them and get better at it. Yet when you come back home, they are still the same. There's nothing much has changed. Those circles are the same, and they're working on their own thing. Like I had a lot of friends who were family-run businessmen. So they wouldn't bother too much about me, talking about, oh, I made this lovely ad. They would say, what the hell? How does it matter? You're working for somebody else or something as simple as that. So they didn't understand the complexity of what was being achieved. And in reverse, to be honest, I may have developed this thing that they are all idiots. They don't get the hang of how much work needs to be done to get something done. They have it easy and whatever. Those kind of prejudices. Over a period, of course, as you grow, you realize all of it is the same. Everybody has a different life journey. But that takes a good 10, 20 years of suffering, if I were to call it that, for them also, for us also, till we find the point where we start making peace with the world as it is, and you move on. So my question to you is regarding that, your learning when it started happening, and I have huge respect for legal learning. I may not know a lot, but having read a lot of fiction on legal stuff, I understood how borderline the understanding is. If you want to push it this way, it can go this way, it can go that way. Um, so my question to you is, how do you perceive your life circumstances post your learning?
uh, so, uh, I mean, I see a lot of people, like I've been fortunate enough, like touch wood, most of my friend circle, oh, we were all idiots. There is no doubt about it. Before I started my job, we, all of us, collective, uh, the biggest group of idiots, joined forces. That's what we were.
Hmm.
But I went off to study law. They started doing their own things. And now that I've come back, one friend's in Canada, one's leaving for Canada, one's leaving for the UK, one is doing his MBA right now, one is in family business and doing very well and has a side business too. Then other friends, two of them are employed, uh, and one of them is also a social media influencer while working. So all of them, it's been beautiful to see their growth,
True.
everyone's growth, like, and no one is, I mean, of course we have one exception in the group. She is where she is, she has been there at that same point, but everyone
But
has
it
a
changes, it happens.
yeah,
Things, everybody has a time and
yeah,
place.
yeah, everyone has a time and pace. So yeah, so
Wonderful. So I like the fact that you are able to see both um, your past with honesty, and the sense of pride in that everybody has overcome their uh, obstacles, whatever they were, mental or physical, and are doing well. Um, what is a dream at your age? What is a dream that you would say that is, yeah, you've succeeded? This is what I would want to see myself. Is there anything like that, or
I
too big?
mean, I don't have a professional dream as we call it. that I want to be here in X amount of years. A lot of lawyers have this. I want to become partner in the next 10 years, or I want
Yeah,
to have my own firm. I do
yeah.
not have any such passions or drivings. I have a hope that someday I get to work on my dream project is in Saudi. It's this green city being built in the middle of the desert called Neom. I would love to work on that project at some point. Doesn't matter when. So that's one thing. But for success, my dream, like the point where I would say I've become successful is I remember there are two things want to do. They are material, but they are very personal to me.
Okay,
Because one is to get a Mercedes because my mother has been hell bent that she wants one. So
okay,
I that is one, and second is buying a bungalow in Chembur because one day we were passing by and my dad casually remarked on how he would love to have a bungalow. So that is the dream. So the day I achieve that, I would have I would call myself successful for them.
you have
For
a
me,
friend in me when you succeed on both of your dreams. I am for you. It's a good thing to pursue these dreams. Okay, let me just throw a spanner in your works. Uh, if uh, if life does not will it to be this way, how would you view yourself today with whatever wisdom you have? This will happen. You have a long time to go, and uh,
hmm,
probably you will achieve both of these. But suppose you were just to take the point further, if you were not to, would it make you unhappy, frustrated at this point of time? Suppose today is the day and you're realizing, yaar, ye to nahi hone wala. What would be your frame of mind? What is the wisdom that you will act with whatever knowledge you have now? Because by then, 20 years, 10 years would have passed, perhaps.
hmm.
But say, or maybe if you're lucky in 2 years, who knows?
I mean the what I mean I don't think it would change how I view myself.
Good.
My all it would do is I have a dream to retire at 55 just like my father, make enough
Hmm.
money till
Hmm.
50 odd, and then retire straight
Hmm.
and probably shift to Goa, buy a shack, have a house. Shack gives you passive income. That's it. And I live my rest of my days out there. So that if if not A, then B. Something
Yeah.
I'll do. And
Wonderful.
it will just increase the number of years I have to put in at max. It just means I've not worked hard enough.
Wonderful. The good part is that you're not judging yourself for failing even at this stage, and I think it's a very healthy attitude to have. One of the concerns I seem to have with the new generation is the liberal use of stress and anxiety and depression and words like those. Failure is part of life. You cannot hold on to each and everything and expect to succeed in a manner that you think you should. There are other things. You may find success where you weren't expecting. You might fail where you weren't. So it's quite all right.
I think
Um,
that's life at the end of the day.
yeah.
So,
What is your core strength? If
so
this is both uh, as a legal professional or as a human being. If one were to come to Aditya and be guaranteed of this core strength, what would it be?
I think it's empathy. I mean, uh, whatever else may happen, I may or may not be able to help you with whatever your problem is,
Hmm.
but you will definitely have a shoulder for your support. Yeah, that can be for anyone. May it be mm, my watchman or may it be the CEO of my company. It doesn't matter. May it be a total random person also. I mean, for me, end of the day, somewhere I feel the need to help, and I find happiness in that.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Um, and as a legal person, if somebody were to come to you while you're still developing, one can't say that you've already reached the peak of your prowess or your powers right now. But how would you look at your strength, and what would it be that you think you are good at, or is it too early to say? How do you
Too
look at
early. Too early. 10 years too early.
it? 10 years too early, is it?
Yeah. Minimum. I think that's the problem with the new generation of lawyers. They want everything quickly. They don't realize that it takes you a good 10 years before you can call yourself even in a field. Forget being an expert. Before considering yourself in a field, you need to spend at least 10 years. Yeah. Or
What is the difference then? What makes for a good experience in any field according to you, with whatever experience you have?
I think the key is the 10,000 hour rule. If you have put in 10,000 hours, that is when you can consider yourself an expert on something. So if I say I'm an expert in drafting, I need to have 10,000 hours of drafting. If I say I'm an expert in research, I need to have 10,000 hours of research. Right? Each aspect needs to have at least 10,000 hours. It can't be like, oh, I've been a lawyer for 10,000 hours. That's not the point. The point is each and every aspect that you claim to be an expert in, you need to hone for that long.
Wow, that is some answers. Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Um, can lawyers be good friends with each other?
Yes, most definitely. Because at the end of the day, the fights that we have in court or at a negotiation table have nothing to do with our personal friendships. In fact, I know of senior counsels, I have seen this happen right in front of my eyes. They would be going at each other like for the throats, most brutal arguments they'll be having, and their arguments conclude and they come out, and then they are joking, laughing together, giving high fives and talking about something else. And these same two people were at each other's throats inside that court. So
Wonderful.
yeah, it's part and parcel of law. Like you need to, we lawyers are very good at compartmentalization, our work versus our personal, because you don't do that, you get lost.
How do you, I'm going back to the first question, but this is now after having answered a couple of questions as a legal professional. How do you read law when it first comes to you? So I come to you with a problem.
Hmm.
मैंने फ्लैट किसी टेनेंट को दिया है, टेनेंट इज unwilling to leave the property. What is the first thing that comes to your mind? I'm talking about a problem. Now, as a person, this is my problem. I am not talking law. You
Yeah.
are the person who will say कि पेपर ये ठीक है क्या, ये ठीक है क्या, ये ठीक है क्या. वो, that is obviously the first part of it also. But I'm saying as a human being who is also a lawyer, when I'm coming to you with a problem like this or any other, how do you view it?
First thing I would want to know is what is your situation? Like, if you're saying that there is a tenant who's not willing to leave, I want to know why do you want him to leave? What are the reasons? Do you need the house for yourself? Do you have any other problems? Are there any other issues? Right? Are there any other? It's two pronged. One is being a human, one is being a lawyer. Because being a human, you need to understand your client's emotions. right? So a lot of times in cases, it may not make sense for holding a position, but for the emotions. To understand that, you need to understand the emotions as a human, right? And second,
True.
as a lawyer, you need to inquire about this stuff, because information at the end of the day is your most valuable asset as a lawyer. You make money off of it, you literally live off of it.
True.
Yeah, so that's why it's very important. So to answer your question, when you first come to me, I'll have a bunch of questions in my mind, and I would expect you to give me an answer to all of them before we get into legal, just so I have the facts correct.
Okay. Uh, a little digging deep into this same kind of question, but how do you know that the person coming to you is honest or not? Is there any ground rule that you follow, or
Oh,
is it blind faith?
no, ground rule is always that your client lies. It is always for all lawyers. Your client is the person who pays you, but is also the biggest idiot in the room, always. And you always assume that, and you keep digging.
And at some point you can be proven otherwise, then what?
Nothing. You continue
Nahi,
with your
Manai,
work.
nahi, I'm saying internally, then is there a shift that happens or what?
There is no shift. So we know as lawyers, we know when we are being lied to, and honestly, most of the times, even if we don't know, we catch on, because people lie, documents don't.
Ah,
Right. So end of the day, for us, documents are like gospel. So we that's why we do deep dive research. So if our client says, "Oh, I've not been, what do you call it? I have not been arrested or had any incident," we will not believe him, because the fact that you had to say it out loud means there is something.
yeah,
There is something there. So that is what we'll catch on.
wonderful.
Hmm.
Uh, how does a trajectory of a legal person happen? This is very hypothetical because you haven't really gone there yet, and it's kind of your first job, I'm presuming. So from here to those people that you look up to, according to you, what is the kind of journey that you are looking at? What happens internally?
So again, too early. Like uh, internally, journey.
So, for example, um, it's similar to something I asked you some time back. But say today you are at a certain stage, you see some lawyer and you say, okay, I just saw a movie on Asaram case some time back.
Mm.
Uh, and that guy comes across as a smart cookie, but still a very real, believable. He looks up to his the other lawyers who come to defend the culprit. As we obviously know, this is a movie made now, but the case happened earlier. So when they are looking at, when he is looking at them, he feels that sense of hero worship, and yet he digs. I don't know if you've seen the movie, um, Manoj Bajpayee. Um, I'm trying to remember the title. सिर्फ एक बंदा काफी है. So you you look up to certain attributes in the people whom you idolize in your field. Like as a writer, there were people who wrote some. Lot of writers liked long copy. I was quite happy understanding storytelling from a different point of view. Oh, this is how it happens. So accordingly, my heroes were different and my outlook was different. I also like the fact that, like, perhaps as a legal person, you would appreciate to find that nuance or the loophole or to me, that has always been the bigger kick than the writing itself. To crack that idea, which will make Aditya buy into. So, for example, when I'm doing a podcast, sometimes I get to do 2 or 3 in a day. Sometimes I don't get one person in a week. I do not know you except little bit about you. We are about to start. I have got to make you comfortable. I got to make you answer questions which are tough, actually tough. In my eyes, at least, I try and get into the behind the surface level interaction that is happening. So getting that idea of how to do it makes me happy. Okay, this is how I would want to do it. So as a legal person, that's what my question is about. When you're looking at the trajectory from now to reaching some place, what is it that would make you happy in terms of, or are you again still saying it is too early for me to realize what are the possible kicks one can get out of one's profession?
I mean, I have always been a very so I work on a reward system basis, even generally. So when I'm working, I will be like, I need to complete A, B, C, D, and only then I get to have X, Y, Z. Like I get to have a coffee break. I usually carry this my
Yeah.
flask. So I carry my flask to office. It contains roughly 3 cups of coffee. So my this would be like, okay, you have to finish this, and then you get rewarded with a cup of coffee. So
Hmm.
that's how it's always been for me. So whatever the case, I'll be like, okay, I need to finish XYZ before I can get ABC. I've always been working on that reward system basis.
Wonderful. I think I've kind of run out of questions. You are too precise, too good. And it's been a genuine pleasure talking to you. And I hope you have a good career ahead
Thank
and
you so much.
continue being a good human being as well as you have spoken about. All the very best.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Bye.
All right. Bye bye.